without fail. That has rescued my arse many, many, many times.
Hey everyone, Stefan here. I hope you're doing well. You probably heard this little saying that if you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, then you go together. Now, when people start in this industry, in the arts industry, we always believe that everybody else around us is competition. But the truth is, as soon as we learn a little bit, this competition thinking changes. And the most natural or maybe healthiest thing to do is to not compare and especially not compete, but instead actually become friends in an ideal world, or definitely become supporters. So what I've discovered over the last 35 years that I'm doing this is that whenever I think, oh, how can you, and this whole jealousy thing, it really eats me up. But instead, when I applaud the others for what they create, when I become a fanboy, then everything opens up. And so I've decided to create this new series where I catch up with some old friends. Some of them are young friends, but still old friends. And they are all incredible at what they do. But what makes them even more special is they're incredible people. And I call them my friends. If they would be in my town, I would definitely kick them out because I don't want them so close. They're too good. But in afar, they're amazing. So my first guest in this new series of Catch Up is someone who I adore for various reasons. And the kid in me says one thing: the circus is in town. Hey, there he is.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
You look good, sir. You look good. And your accent, oh my Lord. You just sound a little bit elevated to the rest of us just because morning.
I'm glad you see it that way. I often wonder if that is ever the case, but yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I will take all.
I mean, your work is incredible, but the funny thing is, we just talked before about how we spend hours and hours and hours during COVID time on this little app called Clubhouse. We had some freaking laughing times. Sometimes it went so far that we couldn't actually say it on air. Now, for those people who have no clue what I'm talking about, Clubhouse was an audio app, and at peak times we had 600-700 people in a room listening to what we are saying in a club that had 64,000 members. So it's a pretty big stage. And at some point, of course, you think, what do I say? How do I say it? Is it a little bit maybe too offensive? But of course, you have your thoughts. And I looked through some of the chats that we had, and everything that we were afraid to say it out loud, we put in the chat. And oh my, this would be a book by itself.
That was honestly, it was such a funny time, such a funny situation, and such a just the way to meet people on completely different sides of the world who we probably wouldn't have met possibly in another way. You might have by chance met on Instagram through the algorithm, but really just all of these people in this one room, just having this discussion and then finding out who was who and checking out each other's social media profiles and making connections off of the app. It was, when it had its time, it was great, and it was also a laugh at the same time, being in rooms with people like you. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, how many people do you know where you spend day after day after day that amount of time? You get to know the little quirks. Oh, he says that when he thinks that. I think it's very special.
It is. I think it's kind of, it's like, as you say, how many times in your life do you find yourself spending that amount of time with people, unless you're in a 9-to-5 job. You go to an office and you're there for 7 or so hours. It's like, how many other situations do you have that time with people other than people that you know, or people who are your family, or your partners or spouses? There was no other way that you could have that time with people and get to know them in different ways, in different discussion situations as well. I mean, we would just be going in and out of all sorts of rooms, and and we'd take some people with us along the way. So.
Yeah, it's crazy. Now, some people are probably watching this and wondering, what are they? Who is this man? If we would just meet in an elevator, what would be your 30-second elevator pitch?
I wouldn't have one. I would just say, listen, here's my Instagram. No. Get your phone out.
Yeah, you don't have a phone, you don't qualify.
But it is insane though that I find myself in more social situations where you have a really good discussion with somebody, and whereby in days gone by you'd exchange emails, you'd exchange phone numbers, you might have a business card with you. Remember those things?
Yeah.
But now it's like, let's exchange Instagrams. What? You're not on Instagram? It's like not having an Instagram is kind of like removes a layer of legitimacy if you're in an exchange with somebody.
Yeah. Where have you lived the last 30 years? It is. Yeah, it's true.
Especially what we do, which is so visual. There's kind of nothing else out there right now that is going to help us kind of be seen. It's still Instagram, sadly, and they know it.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fact remains that it's still Instagram.
Meta/Facebook knows it well. They know it well. There's TikTok, but that's kind of a different beast altogether. And yeah. Now, one thing that I've learned from you about 4 years ago, people are like, oh, what is he doing? Well, is he a photographer? Is he doing this and that and the other? Oh, he's all into film and this and that and the other. And we're like, well, actually, what I really picked up is that he likes cake.
It's true. It is true. I do. Sugar, but cake in particular is just...
What's your favorite?
It's...
Red velvet.
What is my favorite? Red velvet is up there. Definitely red velvet is up there. But I also like simple stuff like lemon cake or carrot cake. I'm a big fan of carrot cake. Love it. Chocolate and Guinness cake's probably the favorite still. It's my favorite one to eat. It's my favorite one to make. That one's got like a special place in my heart.
So if you don't eat cake, what's going on at the moment? Anything different than when we talked last time?
In terms of my food consumption.
Yeah, well, no, I thought more on a creative, spiritual creative.
So I think, interestingly, the last few years has been quite, I don't want to say diversified. I don't think it's that, but I think that, and I feel like this actually started back in 2020. I started saying yes to things that I kind of hadn't done before, that I potentially didn't feel comfortable doing because it wasn't something that was in my specific wheelhouse or area of expertise. So, for instance, doing my first webinar, doing my first in-person talk, doing my first workshop, my first ever workshop I did last January, presenting on camera for the first time. I did this work with Canon last year we filmed these videos, these educational videos around my area of photography, in this case, portrait and fashion. And it was part of a series that they were doing with other photographers. So they would have another photographer specializing, say, lighting, another photographer specializing in, say, editing. And so each person would film 3 videos to address the skill levels of beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And, you know, we did it all in a day. We did it all in like 8 hours. And it was just a very new experience of trying to balance being articulate, concise, talk about the points about the camera that the Canon people wanted to hear, kind of talk about my work, like, or aspects of my work that I just don't think about because I just do them.
Yeah.
You know, they're second nature. Like trying to balance all that within filming a video that was only going to be 5 to 6 minutes long, however long the videos turned out to be. So it was a very interesting experience. I did enjoy it, but it was also quite intense as well because, again, I hadn't done this kind of thing before. So it's been, there's been like things that are building around just doing different things that aren't just like photography and shooting, obviously, which I still do, but those things and getting back into DJing. Seem to be being pulled out of my self-enforced DJ retirement.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What's your favorite song? And what do you think, aside from Reggae Night and Red Red Wine, what gets the audience going?
So I would say my favorite song is probably still the track Unfinished Sympathy by the British electronic dance act Massive Attack. I just have a lot of love for that song. Its subject, its vocals, the strings they use in that track, everything about every time I hear that song, I get goosebumps still to this day, without fail. So that's my favourite song, period. I'd say the song in terms of getting people on a dance floor, I feel like I will always return to the D-Light track, Grooves in the Heart. That is, without fail, that has rescued my arse many, many, many times in many different situations.
It's the groove. It's the groove that does it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yes. It's honestly, it is. It is. It's like, it's undeniable. When you hear it, it is undeniable. It's going to pull you in. Whether you like it or not, it's going to pull you in.
It's another thing that we have in common. Now, if you would, I actually got a list here of things that I wanted to ask you because aside from having this personal conversation with you, which we said would go about 10 to 12 minutes, we're now talking already half an hour. That's just what happens. That's just what happens with us. Oh, far out. So,
love it.
If you would describe your work or yourself in 1 or 2 words, I've written down my word for you. What would yours be for yourself?
Oh, wow. I mean, a risk of sounding in any way cliche, then forgive me. You can strike me down with this, but I feel like my work is rooted in emotion. I feel like I always invest the time in the emotion that I put through my work. I think that is reflective of kind of how I work with people and how I collaborate with people, and that I always try not to just make it about me. So if I'm working with more than a few people, if there's ideas coming from other people who can contribute to this thing that we're creating, then I am always going to be open to that playing its role in the finished thing that we create. That's always been, and I'm not saying that I knew that at the start, but I definitely feel that that's kind of where my work has progressed. Like it sort of started on just a purely superficial aesthetic kind of level. And now I can see that actually when I see how I've progressed and where I've come from, that emotion has steadily but surely run through like all the work I do. And that's like in any capacity, paid job, collaborative, personal project, whatever you want to call it.
I've written down 2 words for you. One is purely on the images that you create, and that word is style. The other word that I wrote is personal. This is something that I try to get into the head of my students. When you start photography, you learn all about the camera and you're all enthusiastic and you go out and you shoot and you learn lighting, and what's then left to do? You now know your camera inside out, you know your lighting, so now it's personal development. And once you get to that point where you walk into a room, you look around, that's a 5.6 at 800. But the beautiful thing, just to be a little bit educational at the moment, the beautiful thing about this is once we become personal, we can also let our own egos at the door and make it about the person that we photograph and have that conversation with the person that we photograph, and maybe allow a little bit of that persona back into those pixels.
I couldn't agree more. Honestly, I couldn't agree more. The thing about progressing from knowing camera settings and worrying about how you're setting up your camera and your lights, that's kind of like stage 1. Get stage 1 out of the way as soon as you can. Be at one with whatever camera you've got. Doesn't matter what brand, it doesn't matter what kind, doesn't matter what format. Get all that out of the way, and then you can it is literally about being a people, but being able to work with people, communicate with people. Once you start to get better at that, it's going to reflect in the photographs. There's no shadow of a doubt. And I know that that's what has got better within me in the last few years, is that it started to feel better. That side of it started to feel better when, even if I don't feel like I'm technically competent in a particular situation, I still know that as long as, the whole setup doesn't flat out and the camera doesn't completely break down, I will still be able to work with the person in front of me and the people around me, because I'm at that level where I can, relate to people, make a connection with people, communicate with the people in front of me and around me, and make that space safe, make that space enjoyable, in many cases fun. I try that as much as possible. And I swear that I really do feel like that gets reflected in the work. Because I feel like if it's the other end and there's no communication, there's no joy, there's no enthusiasm, they're getting nothing from you, it's like getting blood out of a stone, it will also be reflected in the final result.
The funny side effect of the whole thing, aside from creating a better environment leading to better photos, having a great time, it's the perfect marketing strategy. Because people who get great photos,
totally,
right? Like people who get great photos, they're going to share them on Instagram. But people who have a great experience talk to other people.
Thank you. Yes.
Right?
Yes, it's true. It's true. People don't think about that often enough. They don't think about what those people in that room are going to take away with them when the day is finished, when the day is done. If the experience they take away from them is that you are a complete, excuse my phrase, dick, doesn't matter how good you are, that is going to travel as widely as anything that positive anyone could have to say about you. So just try and err on the positive and not the negative, and it will be in your favor, like forever.
That is the best advertising. And we in this industry have this gorgeous advantage that we can please people 3 times. We can communicate with them before the shoot and make them really excited to shoot. Then during the day, we can entertain them I believe during a photo shoot, we're entertainers just as much as technicians and probably 50% psychologists. And then it's over. But 2 weeks later, we can make them happy again by giving them the photos. And if we do the first part and the third part right, then they will talk.
Mm-hmm. It's true, man. Honestly, it's that is gold. The word of mouth, that kind of word of mouth is cannot be underestimated. It carries so much weight, and not enough people kind of recognize that, but it does. It goes a long way.
You know what? We just dropped some nuggets, didn't we? It's like in the olden days.
What do we used to call it on Clubhouse? Dropping gems.
You're dropping gems. Oh my God.
Guy's dropping gems.
Oh, Lord. Well, what I take from this, and then we really have to stop this thing because we're now at 30 minutes. One thing that you didn't mention is the whole chop circle circus thingy-majig that you've started. Back in the day when I went to Instagram, out of nowhere in the stories, I got some picture and saying, we need a makeup artist in Paris this afternoon at 3:00. And then I sent you a message. You're like, what are you doing in Paris? Like, I'm not in Paris. And then the next day, hairdresser, Berlin. I'm like, what? Are you in Berlin now? So what's this all about?
So, and I can't believe I've been doing this for 3 years. This is insane. So January 2021, it started when I saw somebody had put a screenshot of their Apple Notes app saying we need the following for a department store: a art director, e-commerce photographer, and a digitech. And I just thought, you know what? I mean, I don't do two of those things. I'm not really interested in the photography, being an e-com photographer, but actually maybe there's enough people I know on this here thing called Instagram, from which I've seen this thing, or who follow me, who actually might be interested in this clearly job opportunity. So I put it up under the title Job Centre, thought nothing of it. And steadily as the weeks went by, I kept seeing more and more people dropping job opportunities in their Instagram stories. So I would just screenshot it, tag the original person so that whoever was interested in could just message that person directly. And 4 months in, it just caught fire. People started realizing what I was doing and tagging me in their original posts so that I would see it and repost it to my stories. And it basically has become a bit of a monster. I have probably gone 10 days. I thought about it. I've gone about 10 days without posting a single thing in the 3 years since I started doing it. And when I look at, you can pull up the metrics of a story, how many people tapped, how many people skipped, how many people tapped on a name that you tagged. And sometimes some of what I guess I would consider the juiciest job opportunities, the taps on a person's name run into the hundreds. The record currently is 8,000 taps on a job opportunity that I posted middle of last year.
Awesome. Well, I always say the same thing. If you cannot create contacts, you will not go anywhere. It doesn't matter how amazing you are with your camera. It doesn't matter how amazing you are with your lights. If you cannot communicate, it's a one-way street. You have to go left, right, center, forwards and backwards, and that comes with personality. So what brought me to where I am is not my skills. What brought me to where I am is being a human and honestly interested in other human beings. And I believe that applies to Kit just as much as everyone else in my circle. And with that, I say thank you, Circus. Michael, have an awesome night. It's very late in London right now.
Yeah, I'm going to go out partying now. I'm joking. I'm not.
And for everyone out there, go out and create something awesome.